Hey, welcome to the show. I am Maximo, your host. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, ladies and gentlethems. This is Maximo, as always, here on the east side, downtown San Antonio with VOD Pod Media. Big shout out to Gylan Jackson, the man here, the visionary behind what you're looking at now, and much more to come, folks. So stay tuned, subscribe, like, comment, share. I'm Maximo as always, and I got a question for everyone tonight. I've been pondering this just a little bit, and the question is, what's your song? Okay, and I want you to think about this. What is your current song? And I gotta say that because, as you know, listen, all of our lives as they're unfolding, as we're living day in and day out, is getting played out by a song. You know, we have a soundtrack that is getting played through our lives right now. Is it a good song? Is it a sad song? Is it an upbeat, positive, motivating song? Or is it a song that makes you think about regret? Is it a song that brings you down? I wonder about that at times because life, in many ways, for me at least, is what you make of it. And I know somebody's probably listening to this that's going through something. You know, these last couple of years have been tough. They've been rough. And I tell you, if you're going through something, I want you to keep going. And I want you to keep believing because there's something to be said about optimism. There's something to be said about motivation. There's something to be said about positivity and mindset. And life doesn't really get easier. What's that Bruce Lee quote? Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for strength to overcome a difficult one. Now, I'm no one to really preach. You know, I've had a lot of good blessings and good fortune, but I'd also be a lie if I didn't work for some things. And we could throw in the towel. All of us could throw in the towel right now. But I'm telling you, if you're listening, you need a sign, you need something. Let me say that you're right where you need to be. And I hope life is getting better. Life is on the up and coming. And I hope you're doing great and keep it going. And I had to say that because there's so much negativity out there. There's so much hurt. There's so much trauma. There's so much pain that a lot of our people experience. And I wish we could erase all of that. But sometimes we got to work our way out of it. And I ain't no stranger. And I know you ain't no stranger to hard work. And so we're going to talk about a lot of things. But I had to say that. I had to get that off my chest because I'm someone who likes to bring people up. They say the best are the people that make everyone else around them better, not solely just people that, you know, have a nice car, have a nice house, do things for themselves, right? It's about other people. And that's what being a servant is about. And I got someone else with me tonight who I think is a true servant, someone who's a leader in the community, and someone we had to bring to the table to discuss all of this stuff and more. Dr. Darpan Patel. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Good to see you, man.
Well, it's always good to see you, Max.
Good to see you, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Man, that opening monologue of yours really just woke me up, man. I'm ready to go.
I had to say something, man. On the drive down here, I saw a big sign out of a parking lot, and it said, "You are beautiful." Have you seen that one?
I saw that, yeah. We're coming up right 281 right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, a sign like that,
it helps.
It's a little something, man.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe someone need to see that.
Exactly.
It may not. Some people think, well, that's stupid. That's ridiculous. Who would put that up there?
Yeah. As long as it hits that one person that day, that's all that matters, right?
You know?
Hit that one person and did his job.
Absolutely. So tell us, we're going to touch on a lot of things tonight.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit of who Dr. Patel is. And go ahead and slide that mic a little bit closer to you so we can hear you a little bit better. Who is Dr. Patel for those people that don't know who you are?
I'm a complicated person, man. Probably not that complicated, though, man. You know, I grew up in Southern California, lived in California, did my undergrad in California, went to Florida, did some grad school there, lived in Atlanta for a little bit. So I've been up and down I-10. Finally called San Antonio home. You know, growing up in Southern California, grew up a diehard Laker fan, still am a diehard Laker fan. So sports is what I live and breathe. And that's really where my passion is with what I'm doing now, too. So long story short, I grew up in Southern California with the dream of being the head athletic trainer for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Wow.
That was my dream job, right?
Wow. Okay.
So growing up, my dream job was to be the head athletic trainer for Los Angeles Lakers. Gary Vitti, looked up to him, never met him, right?
Yeah.
But I saw him on TV all the time. He was getting these Magic Johnson, Coop, Byron Scott, all those guys. He was getting them ready to play, right? Then ultimately Kobe and Shaq and all those guys as well. And so I'm like, dude, that's cool, right? I love the human body, the way the human body performs and the way the human body adapts. And so that was my life's dream, was to become the head athletic trainer for the Los Angeles Lakers. And so what ended up hitting me was that this guy's not going to retire anytime soon, right? He's not going to retire anytime soon. There's only, 38 jobs in the NBA to be the head athletic trainer for any NBA team. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, I have a backup plan, right? So I got to have a backup plan. And so I'm like, okay, I could be an athletic trainer for like a high school or something like that. That's cool.
Sure.
Or a college, right? Then I saw how much they made. Then I'm like, oh, that's not going to be able to survive. I can't survive on that salary. And so at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I either start working or I continue school. So after I graduated from Cal State Fullerton, go Titans, I had one or two paths to choose from, right? One was do a little bit more school, go get my master's so that way I could get a little bit more educated, or I started working. And I wasn't ready to work yet because I really had no idea what I wanted to do, right? Because I can't be a LA Laker trainer. And so I ended up going to Central Valley, California, Fresno State, go Bulldogs. Went there because Cal State Fullerton didn't have a football program, right? So I wanted to have like a school where I could really rally around, has a good football program. That was right after David Carr had just left. David Carr, and then he got beat up with the Houston Texans. And so he put Fresno State on the map. And so, all right, cool. I could head up to Fresno, live in the Central Valley for a few years and figure out what I want to do. And that's where I kind of got the bug in my ear, in my head to really pursue research as a passion, right? So undergrad, exercise physiology major, because I love the human body, right? Really want to understand how the human body adapted to exercise and how it recovered from injury, more importantly. Didn't know what I wanted to do, so I got my master's in exercise physiology as well from Fresno State. And then, when you do your master's degree, you have one or two options, right? You either take a test to graduate out, which is what they call a qualifying exam, or you do your thesis, right? You do your own data collection and things like that. And I grew up a bad test taker, man.
Yeah.
I was not a good test taker. We talk about
standardized
testing and stuff like that if we want, but I was never a good test taker. And so I'm like, that's probably not going to be good for me because I might not even pass that test. Even though I might get the cheat sheet beforehand, I still probably wasn't going to do good. And so I'm like, but I could BS my way out of a paper though.
There you go.
Right? And so I ended up doing the thesis route. And so I spent a year collecting my own data. Right? And because I was really interested in the human body and supplements and stuff like that, we did a small project on college-age cyclists. And we gave them creatine.
Wow.
Or we gave them caffeine. Or we give them a combination of the two and see how their muscles adapted to that, right? Because caffeine's big, right? Caffeine, you can't use it as a supplement, right? Because it's on the World Anti-Doping ban list, and you can't. And creatine is being used a lot, right, by weekend warriors to get strong and athletes to get strong and things like that. And so I'm like, let's just see what happens to the muscles. And so, long story short, I had a conversation with my mentor at that time, Felicia Greer. She's the one I really credit for put me on this path. So she was an elite cyclist out of Canada. She was down at Fresno State teaching there as an assistant professor. And so I had a conversation with her because I was still at that crossroads of what I wanted to do, right? Because I still wasn't sure what my life had in store for me. And as a master's student, right, you're pretty much almost done, right? Unless you get a doctorate degree, you're pretty much done with school unless you go back and get another master's degree or a professional degree. And so I had a conversation with her, like my third semester there at Fresno. And I'm like, I have no idea what I want to do. And so she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. So she's like, have you ever considered getting a doctorate, a PhD? I was like, nah, I'm not smart enough to get a PhD, right? Because when you think about a doctorate, right, you think about the creme de la creme, right? The smartest of the smart get a PhD. And she's like, she's told me these words, and I've repeated these words ever since. That she said, if I could do it, you could do it, right? The P in PhD doesn't stand for philosophy. It stands for perseverance. Ooh. Right? You got to be able to muscle your way through it. You got to persevere the 4 years of graduate school to get that ultimate degree and get the 3 letters after your name, PhD. And so I'm like, cool. I'm like, all right. So she lit a fire in me, right?
Yeah.
The fire that was really dim in my head, she kind of put some more oxygen to it and made it brighter. Yeah. And so I credit her for where I'm at right now because, like I said, she told me, like, if I could do it, you could do it. Right. And so she gave me that that little pat on the back. She said, just go give it a try. What's the worst that could happen?
Sure.
They say no, right? The worst thing is they say no. You still got a backup plan. You go to PT school or become a PA or something like that, right? And so I shot my shot, right? So I figured if I'm gonna go to the schools to where the authors that I'm reading in the textbooks, where they're going, where they're teaching, right? So I applied at the University of Florida because that's where Scott Powers taught in their applied physiology program there. He wrote the book on exercise physiology. I applied to the University of Tennessee, and that's where Dr. Howley, who was a co-author with Dr. Powers, where he taught, and I shot my shot at ASU. Just because I grew up in Arizona for a little bit. I'm like, oh, why not? We could go give it. It's close to home, right? Because I grew up in California. And so Florida said, yeah, right? And I think one reason why I got accepted to Florida was because of the mentor that I selected there at Florida. Scott Powers didn't have any room in his lab. So I met with another faculty that was right down the hall from his office. She also graduated through the Cal State system, right? She also had someone that gave her an opportunity. So she was trying to pay that forward with me. And so that's where we're at, right? And so you pay it forward, and she gave me the opportunity, and we persevered. Yeah. Right? It's hard, man. Like there was times where I hated her and she hated me. And the nice thing about the doctorate degree is that you're not a student per se 100% of the time. You're more a member of the community there, right? And so we had this working relationship, right? I wasn't her subordinate. I was more of a colleague with her. And sometimes that relationship was tested, but it also allowed me the opportunity to kind of test the waters a little bit and push back, because I'm an independent person, right? The thing with getting a PhD is you be able to think independently, right? So we had the opportunity to think independently under her, and graduated, worked in MS, worked with MS patients. A real blessing in disguise, really, because remember how I told you my philosophy and my backbone was to really understand how the human body adapted, right, from injury and through sports. What bigger injury than disease? Yeah. Right? Like MS, for those of you that don't know what multiple sclerosis is a neurodegenerative disease, right, where you figure the nervous system is what drives our body. Imagine your nervous system kind of having an anarchist running it, right? So you get breakage of the myelin, you get breakage of the axon to where the muscles don't work anymore. Very similar to Parkinson's disease, where the nervous system just kind of starts fighting against you. Yeah. And so we put these women through exercise interventions, and we saw what happened to them. And that really gave me the impetus that I needed to really focus on clinical populations. And so, long story short, we're here in San Antonio now, man. We're doing good things here at UT Health San Antonio, working with students in the medical school and the nursing school. So I'm based in the School of Nursing here at UT Health San Antonio, doing a lot of work with the cancer population down here, doing some work in the community, paying it forward the way it was paid forward for me, and giving kids opportunity to succeed.
And that's what's up, man. And that's inspiring too, because, you know, I originally met you, and I've known you for a few years here in San Antonio. I've originally met you by just being involved in the community. It wasn't because I came to UT Health Science Center. It wasn't like we randomly met, but it was getting pulled together to do work and serve in the community. So what drives you to give back to the community itself, right? Because you don't have to do any of that, right? You can go to work, do the 9-to-5 thing, or stay there after 5, go home. What drives you to do community work?
It's the same thing that drives me to teach, man. It's just making it better for someone else, right? It's about paying it forward, giving opportunities to people that don't think they have the opportunities, and really working with the underserved community, because the biggest thing that separates. So there's similarities between people that have money and the people that don't have money. It is they all have the drive. They're all smart. The only thing that's missing is opportunity. People that got the money have opportunities. People that don't have the money don't have the opportunities necessarily given to them. They got to find opportunities. They got to break through these walls and break through these doors to get these opportunities. And that's why I serve in the community. That's why I work with the community and really advocate for the people of San Antonio, is to provide the opportunities that they may not see that are there and that are available to them. The same thing that was done for me, right? Having that arm around the shoulder and being like, hey, if I could do it, you could do it. You got to persevere. You just got to push through. You got to put your time in, right? If I could do it, they could do it. Yeah. Right? And giving them a face, giving them a role model to look up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And that's part of the reason we do the show. You know, we do podcasting here, but we also do it visually. Yeah. So people can see what's happening. I don't have a degree in journalism. I don't have a degree in broadcasting. I don't have a degree in communication, but I know how to talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
And so practice, repetition, you can get in and open some doors through what you have. Yeah. And schooling is a way to open some doors as well.
Yeah.
Getting those degrees.
Yeah, we're working with students out of Southwest ISD. So I don't know if you know about Southwest ISD, but it's a low socioeconomic community down there on the southwest side of San Antonio. And that's what we're trying to do with them is show them the potential, right? Give them the opportunity. They may not have the money to do it, but there's opportunities to find that money to give you the opportunity to go to school and better yourself academically through education so that way you're able to get out of that vicious cycle. Right, you don't have to stay where you're at. There's opportunities for you to advance. Yeah. And by working with these students and showing and telling them my story, right? So I grew up in Southern California in Anaheim, and everyone knows Anaheim to be the home of Disneyland, right? The happiest place on earth. But you cross the tracks, and it's not that happy. Yeah. Right. So I grew up well, it's not like East San Antonio, but it's like East Anaheim, right? It's pretty much the same thing. Gangs left and right. Right. So you know how to walk through the streets. Right. You just kind of keep your nose down. You just keep walking forward. Right. And people will be asking, hey, where are you from, fool? And stuff like that. You just keep going. Like, I'm just going home, guys. Right. And at the end of the day, people start seeing you and start noticing you because you're walking that street every single day. And they know that you're not there to do anything. You're not there to cause trouble. You're just trying to get from school to home. And that's how we grew up. Right. And so same thing that's going on the southwest side, on the southeast side. They're growing up in the same environment, right? But I was given opportunities, or we found opportunities. Yeah. And so that's the thing. They just need to be able to see someone who's done it, right? See someone that looks like them. I might not be Hispanic, but I'm pretty damn close to it, right? So as long as they look at someone and they can see themselves in that position, that's the biggest thing, man.
Yeah, and there's good people everywhere, right? So, it's just keep providing an opportunity, in this case for mentorship or creating opportunities. But I got to go back because we have a broad viewership. Yeah. We got a little bit of everybody that watches our shows. And so I got to ask you, what's up with your Lakers, man? I got to go back and ask you.
We don't talk about the Lakers, man. We'll flip the script and talk about the Rams now.
The Rams, there you go.
No. But yeah, it's a rebuilding year, man. I hope they make some moves.
I got to ask, how is it where you be all these all-star, former all-stars, although some of them are getting older? You got a great squad. You got a pretty good squad. I'll take that team on paper.
We do. And as long as we get that 8th seed, I think we might be able to make some noise in the playoffs. But, we can't compete. Golden State's, we got Clay back, right? That you can't compete with. Phoenix with Book. Let's see what Book's doing in Phoenix and CP3. With age comes knowledge, but also comes with a lot of aches and pains. Yeah. We just got AD back after 3 weeks with that knee. It's a young man's game, man. It is a young man's game. You see what Giannis did to them the other day. Yeah. Putting up 40 points on the team, and man, the Bucks look solid though.
One of the other things I was thinking about, and I had this, I was talking with my friend the other night, and she was saying, hey, I want to get more involved in public speaking. I have a vision of myself doing some of this stuff, getting out, speaking to youth, and advocating for such and such community. And I said, yeah, that's cool. We can do that. I can help you with that. We can make that happen. Absolutely. But one of the things with that is when you start doing stuff, when you start making noise, when people start paying attention, along also come a bunch of haters. Yeah. If you really start doing stuff, people start trying to bring you down. Yeah. And I was thinking about LeBron James, man. This guy's pretty damn good.
He is.
He's top 10 all time. Yeah. But he has so many haters, right? He has people that, if he walks on water, they say, well, he can't fly. Right. And we know he's not Michael Jordan, but guess what? Who is? Nobody's Michael Jordan.
It's a different game now.
Absolutely, right? It is.
Yeah. And so, but you look at what he's done in the community, though.
That too.
Big ups to him, man. Like with that school. And putting all those kids through college. Again, opportunities, right? Giving kids opportunities that he may not have had. Yeah, he was gifted with the talent of basketball, but you take that away from him, right? Maybe he did not pan out to be what he was meant to be. Yeah. Right? But now because of the gift of basketball, he's had the opportunity to kind of pay it forward. Yeah. Right? That next generation coming out of Akron, like the kid from Akron, more than an athlete. Undisputed. Yeah. Right. And so he's got the podcast. He's got these video podcasts. He's got the school and stuff like that. And he's doing what he's got to do to pay it forward, to help the next generation to learn. He's brought his group with him too, right? His boys that grew up with him in Akron,
Yeah.
right? And
His team.
His team's there. Like he found his ride or dies, and they're still with him, right?
Yeah.
And he got a good group of guys that are supporting him and have his back. And you gotta, as much as he's done on the court, you also gotta applaud him for what he's done off the court too, though.
Absolutely, because there's so many athletes that haven't done that, and this guy's put on. He's continuing to do it. He's got a long way to go still. He is, in his 18th, 19th, whatever year, and he's still performing at a pretty high level.
Yeah. I can't wait for his son to come out, though.
Man, he's going to be playing on the same team with his son.
That's going to be nuts. That's going to be an old man playing a young man's game right there for sure.
So let me ask you as well. You're in your current role at UT Health Science Center. What does an average day look like for you?
Yeah, it's different, man. So most of the day, most of the mornings are built for clinical trials, right? So we have most of our patients that are in the clinical trials come through in the morning. So we have patient visits in the morning. I teach once a week. So my Tuesday afternoons are dedicated to education, right? Teaching the nursing students about research and evidence-based practice and things like that. Administrative work, things that they don't tell you about in school, right? You got to manage the books. What I like to tell people, what my day in, day out job is like a CEO of a small business, right? Because as a researcher, you're evaluated on how much money you could bring into the university. It's unlike any other job, right? Where you're getting paid to bring in more money. Right. And if you don't bring in more money, your job security is kind of not so strong. Right. So we're grinding for grants and foundation dollars and things like that. So we got to find dollars or I got to find dollars, and my colleagues have to find dollars to keep the lights on as for speak and find money to pay salaries for my team. Because if I can't find the money, then they don't have a job. Yeah. Right. And I got to find money for all my supplies. Right. Same thing that's going on here. Right. Got to find the capitalists, the venture capitalists that are going to help fund what you're going to be doing. In my case, the venture capitalists are like NIH, right? National Science Foundation. These government entities, these foundations that are really dedicated to helping improving outcomes in patients with cancer. And so we're constantly through written form asking for money. And so the same way I could try to BS my way out of a thesis, I'm trying to BS my way out of some grants and trying to get some money to support the projects that we're doing. And knock on wood, we've been pretty successful to date, but it's a struggle every day, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of writing, a lot of talking, a lot of working with patients, working with the community, and doing things like that.
Yeah. So a couple things that continue to come up on our shows, you know, and I think people expect me to talk about. We had someone that was commented and asked us to ask a couple of questions regarding men's health. Yeah. And you're knowledgeable in the area. I'm somewhat knowledgeable in the area, more by practice, you by, I think, you know, research and things of that nature. But, you know, in the area, you know, we also got to talk about COVID. Yeah. You know, COVID exposed a lot of different things about how we were living our lives, about, you know, I don't even remember what it was like pre-COVID, right? Almost, because we were almost 2 years deep in this. I think it was in March of 2020 where
we're going on 3 years
it was
now.
Boom, thrown in our face. Like, okay, there's a shutdown happening, and a lot of stuff has come from that, you know. So what are the areas of concern that you're seeing right now amongst men, let's say, with regarding all aspects of their mental, psychological, physical health?
Yeah, no, first and foremost is screenings, man. Like, the screening rates aren't where they need to be for prostate cancer, colorectal cancer being the big ones. We need to go see the doctor, guys. You know, as much as it may hurt us to know that what they're going to be doing, it's important to get screened. Yeah. Because if you catch things early, you could cure it. You can fix it, right? Prostate cancer is not that killer that it used to be back in the day, right? Same thing with colorectal cancer, right? If we catch it early on enough, there's treatments for it, right? So you can live a long, healthy lifestyle, long, healthy life if you catch it early. What happens is when we catch it late, that's when we got to start hitting it hard with therapies and treatments, and that's where quality of life really just diminishes. But if we catch things early, we can go less aggressive with some of the treatment options. Of course, it always depends on what the diagnosis is, right, and how aggressive the cancer is. But if we catch things early, we could treat things early, and that means you have a longer life to live. Yeah. And your quality of life, more importantly, isn't going to diminish. Because at the end of the day, when we think about what we're living with, it's not about what we're living with, but how we're living with it, right? You can live with things if you got a good quality of life, right? If you don't have a good quality of life, then you're suffering every single day. You're suffering to put your shirt on. You're suffering to just get up and get out the door because you're just so fatigued because of treatment and because your cancer's advanced so much. That's why screening, guys, go see your doctor. Go get that annual physical. Go get checked up. Get that prostate check, right? Get your PSA check. Go get that colorectal screening done. It's going to save your life. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your family, right? Do it for someone else.
Yeah.
Pay it forward for someone else. So that way they use you as an example, right? So, hey, he got screened. He's good. What's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is you get detected early, right? But you got a game plan that goes along with the treatment. Best scenario is that they find nothing, but at least you know that they found nothing.
That's a good point. I think we need to normalize those conversations, with many of men, right? Because I think some men may feel ashamed. They may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm weak because I went to the doctor for some reason, right? Or I'm struggling in some form or capacity.
I don't want that type of checkup. Like, I don't want to get bent over an exam table, but it could save your life, though.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And so, listen, there's a lot to be said about men's health, but one of the questions, I want to ask you as well with regards, to COVID is like, okay, now that COVID is commonplace, this is here, right? We talk about a new normal, what is this thing going to look like? I mean, when you and I first started talking about having you coming back in here, first of all, we did a show about 8-9 months ago, whatever it may be, with some of your students who are very bright.
Yeah,
right, by
they're
the way.
exceptional. Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to echo your comments there. But we had that conversation around the Delta variant.
Yeah.
And then when I asked you to come back, this was around the time that Omicron was up.
Yep.
And I mean, we're living in an era of these constant variants. I mean, what's next, man?
There's already a new variant out there right now. I can't remember the name of it, but they just found it a couple of days ago. Just as contagious as Omicron was or is, because we're still living with that. I think it's just going to be commonplace now. Man, I think we're going to end up going from a pandemic to an endemic, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to live with just like the flu, right? Where have these semi-annual or annual vaccines that we get for COVID just to protect ourselves and protect the community, the same way we get the flu shot, right? And hopefully these variants that come out keep getting a little less and less intense than what we first saw with COVID, which I think is what's happening right now with this new variant that's found. It's just as contagious as the Omicron it was, but if you got vaccinated, you're good, right? Nothing really important to worry about. But if you're not vaccinated, then you got some concerns. So right? The biggest thing is to keep pushing for vaccinations. The quicker we get to herd immunity, we're not going to get rid of COVID, right? But the more protected our entire civilization is going to be against COVID.
Okay, so let's talk. And again, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I've got some questions in my mind. A lot of stuff of what we do here is off the cuff for those folks watching, because we want the conversation to grow organically, but we got to talk about the vaccines as well.
Yeah.
Because listen, I think everybody that's watching this has a belief, a sentiment, a stance on the vaccines. Everyone is talking about the vaccines.
Yeah.
Are you going to get vaccinated? Are you not? Did you get vaccinated? Did you, I heard the vaccine's this. Where are we at with the vaccine? I saw some statistic a while ago that such and such percentage of Americans were vaccinated. Now, we talked earlier, we know numbers can be bent and misconstrued in certain ways to depict certain facts, right? But where are we at with this vaccine? I mean, are people believing? Are people trusting the vaccine? Do people trust the science? What is the finger on the pulse for someone who is in the area of encouraging people to get the vaccination?
Yeah. So I can't give you the exact number of where we're at right now with the vaccination rates across the country, but it's a lot better than it was before, for sure. Our biggest challenge right now is to get the kids vaccinated, right? Because with kids, you have to deal now with the parents, right? And the education that we provide to the parents about how safe it is for the kids is just as important as it was for us to educate the adults about getting the vaccine as well, about how safe it was and how effective it was. The naysayers are going to be there, and it's our job to educate the naysayers and try to do our best to show them that this vaccine is safe, right? No one's died because they got the vaccine. Right? Think about that. No one's died because they got the vaccine.
Not one person.
People have died because they got COVID.
Correct.
Right? They haven't died because they got the vaccine. Right? There's side effects with everything. You get the sore shoulder. You might get the fever and the chills. If you get the fever and the chills, that's a good thing. That means your body's doing what it's got to do and fighting against the vaccine that you got to replicate the antibodies that you need to protect itself to when it gets exposed to COVID. Right? So people talk about, oh, I got the chills. I didn't feel good at all. That's a good thing. Right? That means your body is doing what it has to do to protect yourself in the future. That's why the vaccines are so effective, right? Yeah. Because it's training your body how to fight against this vicious disease, this vicious virus. And so our biggest challenge now, right, like I said, is getting the kids vaccinated. The vaccination rates for the kids aren't where they need to be, right? But in order to get to the kids, we have to educate the parents. Right? And so safe, effective. Side effects are actually a little bit less in the kids than they are in the adults. Their body's just more vigilant, right? Their ability to adapt and the immune system in the kids is so much stronger, right, than adults, right? Because they're growing, they're flourishing, their immune system's very strong, right? So it's adapting to that vaccine and making them really strong carriers of these antibodies. Yeah. And so they're gonna be just fine as long as they get vaccinated. Our scary thing is that we don't want to see kids in the hospital. Yeah. Right? That's the worst thing that we could see. As a parent, we're both parents, right? The worst thing I could imagine is having my kid in the hospital hooked up to a ventilator, right? I don't want that for my kid. I don't think any parent wants that for their kid. So I don't want to have to scare people for them to be convinced to have their kids get the shot. But, you know, what's the worst that could happen? Think about the worst thing that could happen if you don't get the shot and they do get COVID. Right, the mortality rates for people that didn't get the vaccine significantly higher. Right, I don't think we can even argue that number. Right, you're gonna have the naysayers that are gonna be like, oh no, you know what, it got developed too quick. Right, I don't trust the science. People lie. You know, at the end of the day, science is what's really gonna drive policy. Right, you could find your distrust in just about everything. Sure. Right? People could say, I don't trust the vaccine because I distrust the government. If you're going to distrust the government for all that it does. Don't just distrust the government because there's a new vaccine that comes out, right? Don't just distrust things that you don't agree with or you don't know about, right? And so that's on our side, our biggest thing, again, as being on the health provider side. Granted, I'm not an MD or a nurse. I'm PhD trained, but our biggest thing is just to educate the community the best we can. Our school of nursing is going out there into the community and doing community vaccine drives. Right, my lab is built as a compounding facility for us to compound these Pfizer vaccines to take them out to the community to give shots to people that don't have transportation, right? Or to educate the community, because you talk about the areas of the community that have the biggest mistrust, right? You look at the minority population, right? And there's understandable why there's mistrust because of the historical perspectives. Our job as healthcare providers now is to try to overcome this mistrust in the community.
You know, listen, there's a lot to be said about the vaccines. You know, there's somebody probably watching this right now saying, hey, why does Maximo have someone who's pro-vaccine on his podcast? Perhaps because he's pro-vaccine as well. Now, a lot of the information that we get, all of us living in today's day and age, comes from these. Yeah. Let's be honest, right? Yeah. People are looking at social media. People are looking at websites that probably don't have refutable news, whatever it may be. And so, you know, people are just gathering information that they want. What a lot of us live in echo chambers, and, you know, we listen and subscribe. We pick and we choose what we want to believe. And that is a bias that we all have, right? Now, listen, there is misinformation. We talked about the Joe Rogan, podcast, and we talked about misinformation being put out there, the dangers of being put out there. But the science, as you mentioned, should be guiding and dictating our decision to get the vaccine or not get the vaccine. Now, there are plenty of people, all people, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're brown, whomever, that don't want to get the vaccine. You know what I'm saying? For all of the reasons that we know. You talked about, it came out too soon, or we don't trust the government. We don't trust, these people. We don't know what's in the vaccine, so on and so forth. I mean, we do want to get to herd immunity. I think that's how we get to some sense of normalcy. Yeah. I know many of people that are living in states outside of Texas that, have to go through the ringer just to go to a restaurant still. Yeah. Right.
I just came back from California. You had to show our vaccine cards everywhere we went.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for those folks living out in California and, Minnesota, Michigan, wherever you may be, you still have to do some of that stuff, which there's a whole nother conversation there. But to get to herd immunity, we've got to have some semblance of doing things in a community, co-living, codependency, right? Yeah, yeah. We don't live alone.
No.
We rely on other people to get things done, to cohabitate, all of that stuff. Yeah. And I think that's part of the struggle that so many people have because, listen, how divisive have the last couple of years been?
Yeah. One thing that we found out about this country over the last couple of years is how much mistrust we have in each other and how selfish we are, right? And we might get some kickback because of that and what I just said, but that's what came to the forefront, right? Like we don't trust each other, yeah. And that's sad, man. Like to the point where we can't trust each other to have each other's back, and to trust what the experts in the field are telling us, right? Like we talked about this earlier too, like. The same things that are going on now happened when seatbelts first got introduced, and that became law, right? And the whole conversation still happened, right? I'm not going to wear a seatbelt. I'm a safe driver. I'm going to protect myself. I know that I'm not going to get hurt, and so on and so forth, right? At the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about the other person, right? What if the other person hits you, or what if the other person has COVID and they give it to you? What are you going to do then? Right? What are you going to do inside of a glass chamber, inside of a hospital, having to FaceTime your family to say goodbye to them? Yeah. Right? What are you going to do then? Right? And we hear all these stories on the news like, oh, I wish I would have got the vaccine as they're in the bed in the hospital. Hopefully some of those people made it. Oftentimes those people didn't. Right? We can only reflect back on our mistakes so much. Right? And we can only learn from our mistakes so much. And sometimes these mistakes come back to haunt you. Right. And so these same conversations we're having now, we had when the seatbelts were introduced. Right. But that ultimately became commonplace. One thing that I think is a big issue right now with vaccines is this. And I can understand why people are having a hard time with this because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. Right. There's local governments that are saying this, the CDC is saying something else, and then Washington, D.C. is saying a third thing, right? And so I get that. That's frustrating for me, too, and I understand what they're trying to do, right? I can only understand what the normal Joe has to deal with, right? Because I can understand what's going on behind closed doors and the conversations they're having behind closed doors because we've had them at our institutions here in San Antonio. I can understand what's going on over there, but for the people that haven't been privy to those types of conversations, that's confusing as all heck, man. Like 1 mask versus 2 masks, right? That conversation happened, and that was the buzz for like maybe 3 months, right? Like one person saying wear 2 masks, the other person saying 1 mask. Like that's confusing. The other thing is, right, like, if you're around a community of vaccinated people, you don't have to wear a mask. But then the CDC still saying that, yeah, we still encourage mask wearing. What do you want us to do? Right? So
which one?
So what's the right thing to do? And I think the biggest thing is that there is really no right or wrong. Right? There is a wrong. We know that, but there's multiple rights. Right? Protect yourself. Yeah. Right? Protect your family. Wear a mask when you're out in public, right? When you're around other people that you don't know. Right? You don't know what their vaccination status is, so protect yourself because you don't know what you're going to carry back home. Protect your parents, protect your grandparents, protect your kids who may not be vaccinated, right? Protect the people that can't get vaccines because they're immunocompromised, right? Their immune system's not strong enough to get a vaccine. Think about those people, right? Think about the people that want to get the vaccine but can't get the vaccine and protect them. Pay it forward for someone else. Yeah. Right. But we found out how selfish this country is.
You know, the country. Listen, you said we're going to get kickback for saying. I don't think that's. I think people will say, "Yeah, I am selfish." Right? We will find people that will admittedly, proudly tell us, "Yeah, I'm selfish." You know, I was talking to someone today in a setting where we started talking about the economy, right? Rising prices, inflation, all this stuff, greed and capitalism and all this stuff. And then somebody turned around and said, well, you know, because we were talking about COVID as well. And they said, well, yeah, it's Let's Go Brandon, which I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's a reference to like F Joe Biden.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're telling me Joe Biden wants COVID around here?
Yeah.
And then she goes, well, he's a walking corpse. And I'm just like, you know, this is the state of affairs of where we're at in this country right now.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody has an axe to grind. People got it already pegged.
Yeah.
It's going back to Joe Biden. It's going back to this person. It's going back. And I'm just like, man, how are we gonna overcome some of this?
I don't know, man. It's hard. Like, especially since we've been separated for the last 3 years with this pandemic, man. I think, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like it's a scary situation to be in where everyone has to find fault in someone else in order for them to feel right.
Yeah.
Right. Compromise is gone. Right. There's no such thing as compromise anymore. Like me and you could have opposing viewpoints, but what if we meet middle ground? It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't think that exists anymore. It could be a trickle down from what's going on in DC or what happened in DC the last 5-6 years. Actually, probably even going back to the Barack Obama administration, right? And the whole issues that the Democrats had with the Republicans and vice versa when Barack Obama became president. And so that's probably what did it.
Yeah.
In all honesty, that's probably, if I could point back to a time where we started having this complete separation of sides, is right around then.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I had to put a time point on it,
it's tough, man, because, you know, man, there's just people on every single position that are just not willing to compromise.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of it, whether it's guns, whether it's vaccines, whether it's the economy, you know, or aspects of the economy. Man, it's tough, man. It's a little exhausting. It's frustrating as well.
Yeah, it's tired. It's hard to hear this news every single day, right? And the news cycle, it's supposed to be short, but when it's the same thing over and over and over again, it's just said in a different manner, said in a different format. But the context is still there. The concept of mistrust and lack of compromise or lack of wanting to compromise is there, right? It's just said in a different vein, different type of context.
Yeah, and so again, going back to just health in general, you know, one of the things I'd like to share is that, you know, if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, hey, maybe my health is compromised, maybe I'm not, you know, getting enough rest and you know, relaxation or less stress in my life, I'm not getting enough sleep. Maybe if you're watching this and you're saying, I'm not eating right, I don't eat right, you know, I don't eat enough food, I don't, you know, eat healthy, whatever. If you're looking at this and you're saying, I don't exercise, I don't, you know, have any movement in my life, I just sit at a desk all day, when I get home I'm tired. I mean, what can we do to encourage people to live better? Because there is an aspect of it, you know, that when we talk about COVID, that there's some things we can do as well.
Yeah.
There's some things that we can do to better our chances. Earlier, you talked about high intensity interval training and what was it? Cancer patients.
Yeah. And metastatic prostate cancer patients. Yeah. So we're starting a study. My group is starting a study at UT Health San Antonio Mays Cancer Center to look at the effects of high intensity interval training in men with metastatic prostate cancer that are starting chemotherapy. So what we found and what the data tells us is that a large percentage of men that go through chemotherapy treatment for the metastatic prostate cancer have dose modifications, which means that they're either reducing the dosage that they're getting or they're actually stopping the treatment altogether, all because of the adverse events associated with chemotherapy. And we all understand chemotherapy is a very toxic intervention, right, to treat any type of cancer. Whether it's a solid tumor or a heme-based malignancy. But when it comes to dose modifications with chemotherapy, if you're lowering the dose, that means you're actually adding more treatment cycles in at the end, which may actually be worse for the body. quality of life wise and physical function and all those things that fall under the umbrella of quality of life. What we're trying to see is how exercise done during chemotherapy, during the chemotherapy cycles, not the day of infusion per se, but the days in between their infusion visits, to see how that improves their ability to tolerate chemotherapy. What we're thinking is two things. One is that overall, the modifications that occur with chemotherapy are going to be limited. Right, we're thinking that with exercise, because the body's gonna be able to maintain its strength, its vigor, we won't necessarily have to have the dose modifications that we would need otherwise. Second, the secondary effects, the adverse effects associated with chemotherapy, the changes in white blood cell count, the changes in body composition. Muscle atrophy is a big thing when it comes to chemotherapy, right? So the loss of muscle mass during chemotherapy is huge. With the loss of muscle mass comes all the downstream effects, right? You have fatigue, right? You're not as strong as you used to be. You have loss of endurance. And so what we're thinking is, by exercising these men, things that we could typically do at home on a bike, we'd be able to kind of prevent these side effects, right? And then one of the experimental aims that we have as well is to see how it could actually improve treatment response within the tumor as well. There's a lot of work that our group has done, as well as colleagues at MD Anderson and groups out of New York and Memorial Sloan Kettering, that have found that in the animal side, if we exercise these mice while they were getting chemotherapy, like mice that have tumors, and we give them chemotherapy and we give them like running wheels or treadmill exercise, the blood flow to the tumor increases. And that means the chemotherapy delivery to the tumor increases as well.
That's interesting.
Right? And so simple intervention, right? Non-medical interventions, things that require behavior modification, which of course is a really hard thing to do. But if it becomes commonplace, we could definitely help improve the outcomes of the patients that are suffering from this debilitating disease. And the animal work has shown it. Now what we're trying to do is translate that to clinical trial to see if our clinical population can benefit from these interventions the same way we saw it in animals.
Man, that is so interesting. And I'm a huge advocate and proponent for movement. I believe movement is medicine, physical exercise, whether it be dancing, whether it be yoga, whether it be picking up weights and dropping them down. Yeah. But one of the questions that we had come through from Carla Aguilar, what's up, Carla? I hope you're doing well, is what, in your experience, are ways that our brothers can take agency over their mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and not just physical fitness?
Oh man, that's a tough question.
It's a deep one.
That's a loaded question too. Yeah, oh man, at the end of the day, you got to love yourself before you can love someone else. Yeah. Right. And we're in that grind every day. Right. We're in that grind every day. The 9 to 5. Sitting behind a desk or out there on our feet all day, and we're coming home tired, right? The basic recommendation for physical activity is 30 minutes a day, right? 30 minutes a day of just walking. That American College of Sports Medicine, the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, they all agree that if you just do 30 minutes of walking a day, that's going to benefit you better than just sitting around. And not that you have to do 30 minutes continuously. You could break that up to like 10-minute segments or 15-minute segments. So find time. There's always time in the day to get a little walk in, no matter how hot it is or how cold it is outside. Walk around the house if you have to. That's okay. The other thing is the mental health is important, man. Meditation, finding some quiet time just for yourself to reflect. One thing that's really, really what I found to be beneficial, unfortunately, I don't do it, but when we've done it in other studies, journaling. Just write down your thoughts, right? If you write down your thoughts, you can reflect back on them at some point in time when you have time. So carrying a little notepad, or we all got these smartphones, right? Just make a little voice note for yourself and be like, hey, this is what's going on right now. This is how I'm feeling. So that way you have a walking diary of what's ticking you off, what's making you happy. So that we could go back to those things later and really, really amplify the things that make you happy and try to squash out the things that don't. Right? Yeah. So you got to love yourself before you can love other people. That's the biggest thing, man.
And you got to find the avenue to do that. So usually what it is to me is that you find something that speaks to you. Yeah. Whether it's journaling, whether it's listening to music, whether it's playing video games, whether it's, getting in a circle and watching, football, right? we find ways to better ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that the health component to that, mental health especially for our brothers, is not spoken about. And I don't think you can have a discussion about health without talking about mental health.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of the number one areas that I think we struggle in.
And the machismo factor comes in for
Absolutely.
sure, right? Like we talked about the minority population and the machismo factor. No matter what skin tone you got, that's always going to be a factor, right? Like what we we've always been told growing up, don't let them know that you're mentally weak, right? Like you can't be mentally weak at things, right? Don't be sensitive. You got to be mentally strong, right? So that's always been ingrained in us to a fault, right? To the point where we neglect our mental health. And now it's becoming common conversations now because of people that we see on TV are having these conversations with us indirectly, right? Talk about these NBA players that are Kyle Korver, talk about mental health, right? Kevin Love, talk about mental health, right? And then Simone Biles coming out last summer Olympics, talking about the importance of mental health for her. We might have even seen it on the slopes the last 2 days with Schifrin, right? The stress that comes through being elite athletes and the importance of mental health. Just because they're elite doesn't mean that they're weak, right? When it comes to their psyche, same thing applies to us, right? We had the same issues with us as everyday men that those elite athletes are doing. We're just doing it in a different mind frame, different type of set, right? So we got to focus on our mental health the same way they're advocating for their mental health as well.
Yeah. Oh man, you touching on the Olympics right now too, which there's a great documentary. I think it's called The Price of Gold or The Cost of Gold. Michael Phelps, check it out, Google it. Incredible documentary about mental health, the mental health of Olympians. Yeah. And a lot of, like what you just said, a lot of the struggles that they have are struggles that we have on a different level. Yeah. Not saying it's higher or lower, but we have the same stress. Listen, a lot of our people are overworked. Yeah. You know, one of the other things we talked about is going to see a doctor. Look, some of our people don't have access to healthcare. Yeah. Right? That's something that you know.
That's a real
very
thing.
well.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something that, you know, we acknowledge, but we gotta find ways to work within the system, right? Because there's a couple of ways of getting change done. Working in the system and working outside the system. I think we got to work in all the systems.
Yeah, and there's not enough mental health care professionals out there either. Like if you go to LA, you probably just throw a stick and gonna hit one. But you come here to San Antonio, right? There's not enough mental health professionals here in San Antonio. And so if you try to get an appointment with a mental health professional, you're gonna have to wait months. We don't have months, right? A person that's on the brink, right? They don't have months to wait to get access to care. Right. And so we got to think about that and the way we train the next generation of healthcare professionals as well. And so we need to focus on developing the next generation of mental health professionals that are going to treat us, right? We're getting older, right? We're living longer. And we think about what we had to go through as kids. The kids that are growing up now deal with 10 times as much as we had to. Right, we got smartphones on top in our hands. All the kids have smartphones now, and bullying looks differently now, right? Like bullying is a 24/7 thing. Yeah. Before you got bullied at school, at least you could go home and get away from it. Yeah. Right now you can't. So these mental health professionals are lacking, not only just for adults but also for kids. And so it's got to be a full spectrum thing, right? Like access to care is a big thing, and the biggest thing with access to care is that there's not enough mental health professionals out there.
Yeah, and we need everybody. Yeah. You know, my son, you know, he came home and this month they're having a whole month on kindness. And so every day they're learning a little bit about kindness. I said, man, that's one of the best things that the schools can do. Yeah. You know, empathy, you know, so we don't have bullying at all. Forget bullying only 8 hours a day or 24. We shouldn't have bullying at all.
No, not at all. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, love each other, man.
Yeah.
Like you're kids. Like, bullying doesn't stop just at kids, right? Bullying even happens in the workplace and things like that. But why?
Exactly.
Because someone wants the upper hand on you. Like, is it really that big of a deal? Like, because you don't like the way I look or like the way I talk. It's why? Like, what I want to get to the reason of it is why? Like, why are you doing this? Right? I think if we could figure that question out, then we might be onto something.
Yeah, let's get some solutions here.
Seriously. I'm tired of talking about the problem, right?
Yeah.
The problem, we already know the problem. Let's talk about the why. Like, why are we getting there, right? Like what's the issue at hand that's causing all these psychological issues to go down? We talk about money and stuff like that to the cows come home, but what's the underlying mechanism that's driving these things? Whether it be bullying in kids, bullying in the adult workplace, drugs. We got to find the reason why things are happening in order for us to make solutions.
Yeah, man. Gosh, I love it too. And I love talking about solutions, or at least hypothesizing, creating solutions, creating suggestions. If you're watching this and you're an innovator, spark us up the next best idea. Let's get this going, man. We need more solutions. Yeah. The best people bring forth solutions. They don't just talk about problems, and criticize other people, right? I mean, come on, we gotta be thinking outside the box here.
Yeah, man. Just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation. Yeah. Right? Let's come to a compromise. Let's try to figure out how we can work together to get these solutions on the table and try to help the next generation.
Yeah, and that's what we do here at this table. Always, we want to have these conversations. We want on the cutting edge of innovative ideas, of science, of different things in entertainment. We wanted it all to happen here, man. But listen, it was great having you in today, man. I mean, I'm going to give you the final words. I always love kicking it back, but anything you may want to share, anything that, you got the opportunity to share with all the viewers, people that are, watching you and your friends and family here. We're going to share this with everybody. And so we'll give you the final words, man. You can close the show out. And we just want to say, hey, thanks for coming down and spreading some knowledge with us. And we'll kick it over to you and we'll end the show that way.
Maximo, it's always a pleasure. Gylon, man, keep killing it on this side. First and foremost, Rams. Rams winning this Sunday for sure. That defense can't be stopped, man. They're gonna put a squash on Joe Burrow.
We'll see, man.
It's gonna be a nice matchup, man.
It's gonna be a good game.
The DBs versus Chase, man, it's gonna be a nice matchup on that side. But what I like to tell people is this, right? We talked about my story, right? My initial goal of becoming the head athletic trainer for the Lakers, and then contemplating PT versus PA, and then ultimately coming here and having a successful career so far, I would say. What I like to tell people is this: is that there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's only your way, right? Get it done the way you know best how to get it done, right? Overcome those barriers to the best of your ability. You got to fall in order to know what success feels like, and just love yourself before you can love someone else. And take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else either.
My man.
Yeah.
There it is. I love it. Thank you so much, folks. Every Wednesday here, 7 p.m. Central. Check us out. Follow, like, subscribe, share here, VodPod Media. Doc, it was a pleasure as always, man.
Appreciate you guys too, man, for tuning in.
That's right. We'll see you next time, folks. Thanks so much. Have a great night.